What if I told you that in one of the most beautiful cities in Canada, a little girl simply vanished? That her killer was caught, charged, and walked out of that courtroom a free man, and that one of the jurors left with him. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a little girl from Kelowna, British Columbia. A story that Canada has never been able to forget. Some cases are never solved. Some truths never come out. This is Faded Without, and we don't stop looking. Before we begin, every year thousands of children go missing across Canada. Most come home, but some are taken. What you are about to hear is a real story. The names are real. The case is still open. The killer has never been convicted. This is the case of Mindy Tran. Kelowna, British Columbia, 1994. She was 8 years old. She rode a pink bike. She went outside after dinner to play with a friend 1 block away, in a quiet neighborhood, in a city where nothing like this ever happened. She never came back. 6 weeks later, her body was found in a shallow grave, just 4 blocks from her front door. A suspect was arrested, charged, tried. 80 witnesses testified over 7 months. He was acquitted. And then, in one of the most shocking twists in Canadian true crime history, one of his jurors left with him. 30 years later, nobody has ever been convicted of killing Mindy Tran. Welcome to Faded Without. To understand what happened to Mindy Tran, you need to understand Kelowna in 1994. Kelowna is a picturesque city in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia. Nestled between mountains and lakes, it was, and still is, one of the most beautiful places in Canada. In 1994, Kelowna had a population of just over 76,000 people. It was the kind of city where parents let their children play outside after dinner without a second thought, where neighbors knew each other by name, where the biggest concerns were the summer heat and the price of cherries. Mindy Tran was 8 years old, a grade 3 student at Spring Valley Elementary School. Her teacher would later describe her as quiet, happy, friendly, sweet, gentle, well-mannered and sensitive. She was described by many as a studious child who was always willing to help others. On the evening of August 17th, 1994, Mindy did something completely ordinary, something thousands of children across Canada were doing at that exact moment. She went outside after dinner to ride her pink bike and visit her friend, Charmaine Mugford, who lived just down the street. She was last seen running up the stairs of the Mugford house. That was the last time anyone saw Mindy Tran alive. When Mindy didn't come home that evening, her parents raised the alarm. What followed was one of the largest community searches in Kelowna's history. Hundreds of friends, family members, and neighbors fanned out across the city, searching parks, alleys, fields, and every corner of the neighborhood. They searched for days. On August 22nd, 5 days after Mindy disappeared, the official search was called off. No clues, no leads, no Mindy. Her parents made televised appeals for her return. The city held its breath. Then, 6 weeks after she vanished, something extraordinary happened. A man claiming to be a psychic, armed with a divining rod, approached police with information about where Mindy's body could be found. Let that sink in for a moment. After weeks of professional police searches, after hundreds of volunteers combing the city, it was a man with a divining rod who led police to Mission Creek Regional Park. Just 4 blocks from Mindy's house. On October 11th, 1994, police found Mindy's remains in a shallow grave, buried under a pile of leaves and twigs. She had been stuffed into a suitcase. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The city of Kelowna was devastated. A deputy mayor would later say those exact words. It was a time when Kelowna lost its innocence. From the very beginning, police had a suspect. Shannon Murrin was a 49-year-old drifter from Newfoundland who had arrived in Kelowna in the spring of 1994. His brother-in-law had told him there was work in the Okanagan. He found a job as a mechanic and rented a room at the Mugford House, the same house where Mindy had been going to play that evening. He lived just down the street from the Tran family. He was among dozens of neighbours interviewed the night Mindy disappeared. He told police he was at a friend's house when she went missing. By December 1994, just 4 months after Mindy vanished, police were telling Murrin's friends that they believed he had killed her. Then things got very, very dark. In January 1995, 3 of Murrin's friends confronted him at his house. They threw him into the back of a truck, drove him to where Mindy's body had been found, and beat him unconscious. Murrin spent 11 days in hospital. Doctors had to drill a hole in his skull to relieve pressure on his brain. Later, much later, Murrin would allege in a lawsuit that the RCMP had encouraged these men to attack him in order to extract a confession. He settled that lawsuit out of court in 2009. The details of the settlement were never released. Murrin was formally charged with Mindy's murder in January 1997, 2.5 years after her death. The trial of Shannon Murrin was one of the longest and most complex in Kelowna's history. More than 80 witnesses testified over nearly 7 months. The Crown's case rested heavily on DNA evidence. A British laboratory had found 3 hairs in Mindy's underwear at the gravesite that they linked to Murrin. Previous DNA tests done in Canada had been inconclusive. The Crown argued that Murrin had sexually assaulted and killed Mindy, stuffed her body into a suitcase and transported it to Mission Creek Park, where he buried her in a shallow grave. The defence argued that the RCMP had gotten the wrong man, that the investigation had been compromised from day one, that the evidence was largely circumstantial, and a subsequent RCMP internal review would back that argument up, finding that the investigation had been, in their own words, plagued from its first day by police mistakes and personnel problems that ultimately doomed their case against Shannon Murrin. On January 25, 2000, after nearly 7 months of trial, the jury returned its verdict. not guilty. Murrin jumped to his feet and gave 2 thumbs up to the jury members. "I got released because I got 2 really good lawyers," he told reporters as he walked out of the courthouse. That night, he celebrated with a steak and a beer before flying home to St. John's, Newfoundland. But the story doesn't end there, because what happened next is the detail that nobody who followed this case can ever forget. One of the 12 jurors who acquitted Shannon Murrin left Kelowna with him. Her name was Cathy MacDonald. She later admitted publicly that she and Murrin had fallen in love during the trial. The family of Mindy Tran had to watch this. Since Shannon Murrin's acquittal in January 2000, the murder of Mindy Tran has remained unsolved. Murrin returned to Newfoundland. He cannot be tried again for Mindy's murder. Double jeopardy protects him. Even if new evidence emerged tomorrow, he could never face trial again for this crime. Think about what that means for the Tran family. In 2019, 25 years after Mindy's death, a small group of mourners gathered at the Mindy Tran Memorial in Mission Creek Regional Park. A tree with a sign bearing her school photo. "Every night they are still so angry," someone close to the family said. In 2024, 30 years after her death, another memorial was held. Her Grade 1 teacher, Elizabeth Daly, spoke. "The qualities I appreciated in Mindy were those of a quiet but happy, friendly little girl who was willing to help others. She was sweet and gentle. She was well-mannered, sensitive, and appreciative. These qualities are Mindy. Nothing can change or alter them." In 2024, Kelowna police announced they were re-examining 4 cold cases, including Mindy Tran's. A retired RCMP staff sergeant came out of retirement specifically to work on these files. But with double jeopardy protecting the only man ever charged, what justice can possibly come? Who put Mindy Tran in that suitcase? Who buried her 4 blocks from her home while hundreds of people searched for her? Who has lived with that secret for 30 years? If you have any information about the murder of Mindy Tran, please contact the Kelowna RCMP or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. This case is still open. Mindy Tran would have been 38 years old today. She rode a pink bike. She wanted to play with her friend. She deserved to come home. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Faded Without. Every week, we bring you the cases that Canada forgot. Leave your theory in the comments. What do you think really happened? Was Shannon Murrin the right man? Or is the real killer still out there? Share this video. Say her name. Mindy Tran. I am Faded Without, and we don't stop until the truth comes out.